Hello and welcome to The Locker Room. I'm Rob Davison. I'm joined by Tom Ross and Nathan James. Welcome to you both. This week's show, we'll delve into what makes a sporting dynasty and whether they are good for sport. We see whether attempts to stamp out referee abuse in local football is working. But first up in the program, Canberra mountain biker Joseph Simpson has set his sights on trying to make the Olympic team for Tokyo next year. The young rider, who's won 3 state championships and 2 national titles, is battling the curse of many in this high-risk sport. He has suffered numerous serious injuries, including a collarbone reconstruction, and he's only just turned 20. Simpson told the Locker Room's Michael Caruana he is learning to push through the physical and emotional pain of injury.
What's your biggest achievement been in your career?
Biggest achievement would just be going from race to race and continually trying to push myself. So going from nationals, I've raced in New Zealand in the Enduro World Series. That was probably the highlight, going over there and racing and messing it up with the big dogs. I did that when I first entered under 19s and was in under 21 category. So as a bit of the underdog and surprised myself, surprised my coach.
Have you ever thought of going for Olympics?
I have actually. So continually training, pushing myself, the bike's limits, and the end goal, possibly not the next coming Olympics, but the Olympics after that.
Has anyone suggested to you that you go for it?
Yeah, so working pretty closely with my coach on a tight schedule when I'm not broken.
How many injuries would you say you've had in your career, both big and small?
So little ones are good because you just kind of get up, dust off and go to work or school the next day, but there's been a few big ones that have stopped me on my tracks for a few months at a time, but I've broken my collarbone and had to get that plated, and I've also broken my tibia and partially tear the ACL.
Are you scared you could injure your body more?
Look, there's always that possibility, and I always have this discussion with mates and that I closely ride with, and the end of the discussion is you every time you throw a leg over the bike, there's the possibility of injuring yourself, but you push past that and you don't think about that because the repercussions of thinking about it could lead to that. So recently, one of my mates had a pretty big injury involving his neck, and that was a pretty big scare for all of us. But at that time, I couldn't really see my life without bikes. I've been so invested in them, and like the people you meet and the places you go and the feeling you get from going down a single bit of track, or kind of in a weird way outweighs all that risk.
Do you reckon any of these injuries would affect your mental health?
Look, for sure, like if I ended up in a severe condition where I became quadriplegic or paraplegic, and I've thought about this, it would affect me because I've been gone from a quite physically capable and able-bodied human to nothing. So it is a daunting to think about it, but if it was something that had happened but I could push through, and if I got told that I couldn't walk anymore, I'd be that 1% to say I'm going to walk again.
What makes you keep going back?
Purely the love for it. I don't think I could see myself without it, and that feeling of sliding around a corner or scaring yourself a little bit as you're still going down the hill. Funny thing is whenever I'm riding with mates and we're doing a bit of a gnarly track or something, I'm always the one to make the noises and scream down the hill. And it's like, just in pure excitement, and I'd miss that.
It's incredible to think what the human body is capable of when looking at vision like that. We've seen a lot more extreme sports break into the mainstream media. So Tom, what makes sports like these so appealing from a fan's perspective?
From a fan's perspective, I'd probably say the fact that I can't do that. You know, these people are pushing their bodies to the limit, and you know the extremity of the sports is just ridiculous. And you know, I look at fans flock into Canberra Stadium to watch Nitro Circus do their kind of thing, and you kind of think that's incredible. I can't do that.
With that wow factor.
Yeah, that's what kind of draws fans in, I'd say.
Yeah.
I think from an athlete's perspective, it's that thrill factor, the adrenaline rush that they get, and also doing a sport that's not common. I think that's the biggest thing from it.
So would you say these sports are more about being mentally strong rather than physically strong?
Physically, yeah, I don't know. There needs to be a bit of a balance, I'd say. I'm looking at Ross Clark-Jones, big wave surfer. Like when he's doing those 20 metre waves in Nazare, he can't put a foot wrong. I mean, there's little bumps and changes in the water that, one slip up, he sees tons and tons of water just fall on him like cement.
Yeah.
And I think, from the mental side, I look at a guy like Alex Honnold, who's a free climber. He climbed El Capitan, which is pretty much like this, 914 metres straight up. And he says it's about getting over the fear of it. So I think that's where it's not really, you can have all the strength you want, but that mental capability is what is most important.
But then, so why do athletes risk not just their bodies but their lives just for sport?
That's a tricky one, it's hard to give something up like that you've put so much effort in, so much work, and these people become to love it, and the passion for their sport. Looking at, I watched the Michelle Payne movie the other night, and it opened my eyes to she broke her neck in a pretty terrible fall, but that didn't stop her from not listening to doctors' advice, and she went on to win a Melbourne Cup. So I'd say the passion and love for the sport.
Yeah, and obviously love for the sport, but I think it also becomes an addiction to them. When you do it a couple of times, you fall in love with it, and you just want to keep on reaching new heights.
Well, let's turn to football in Canberra, which has been dealing with its own issues on the treatment of referees. Faced with an annual exodus of match officials because of abuse, Capital Football introduced new rules to rein in players, coaches and spectators. After one season, the view is that the rules have led to positive change, but there's still a long way to go to fix systemic problems in the sport. Tim Warren has the story.
It's scenes like these that Capital Football are trying to eradicate. Match officials are being abused and harassed, which forced the organisation to launch a comprehensive review to solve the issues surrounding refereeing. The review prompted new rules to be implemented for the 2019 season, which included temporary dismissals, matchday crowd supervisors, and red and yellow cards for coaches. Capital Football Digital Coordinator David Jordan says the new rule additions have improved the conditions for referees and the sport in general.
In 2018, we launched a comprehensive review into the governance and the culture around refereeing. It came off the back of a forum in 2017, and it looked to implement a governance structure that would help change the culture of refereeing.
Although the rule changes have been relatively successful in its first season, Jordan admits it's just the first step in a long process.
It's only been in place this year. I think early signs are that implementations that have been made are having a good impact, speaking to referees, but it's going to be more of a long-term thing, so we'll see how it plays out over the next year or so. It's opened that channel, referees have embraced it, and it's been used really well.
Delphina Demoski, who was awarded the 2019 Men's and Women's Capital Football Referee of the Year, has approved the new rule changes.
From my perspective, I've issued a few, and what I often find is after you give one TD, the game tends to settle from a dissent perspective. Do I think it's been positive? Yes.
Although temporary dismissals have been introduced by Capital Football, red and yellow cards still remain for usual offences.
TDs are obviously issued when a player dissents in certain competitions in the ACT, so there is still red card offence if a player is foul, abusive and insulting towards a referee. In terms of reduction of dissent, it is amazing how quickly people cotton on that if you mouth off at a ref, you're going to get 10 minutes in the bin.
Demoski says temporary dismissals allow officials to better control players' emotions during a game, which has led to a reduction in dissent.
It gives the referee greater control of the game in terms of if you can see things are slipping and someone keeps mouthing off at you, you have a chance to actually take control of that situation and help better manage the game.
Other rule introductions, such as club-vested officials, have reduced the amount of spectator abuse in the 2019 season.
So we've begun the use of club-vested officials, so each club on a match day must provide 3 vested officials in high visibility vests, and they essentially go around the ground and keep an eye on their relevant sets of supporters and fans, and will speak to people who are misbehaving or acting inappropriately, particularly towards a referee. And that's been taken on really well by clubs. Everyone's jumped on board with that, and that's been good to see, and I think that's helping with behaviour at football matches.
Demoski believes crowd monitors are a good idea, but believes further education for clubs is required.
Do I think vested officials have worked? Yes and no. I think the more work we put into education of clubs of what the role of a vested official is, how they're supposed to help facilitate a good match day.
Demoski also backs the introduction of cards for officials on the bench.
The use of yellow and red cards for coaching staff and people on the bench, I think that is a great step forward, because sometimes when you go and get rid of a coach or remove them or tell them off, it wasn't clear to everyone around them what was happening.
By implementing these rule changes, Capital Football has hoped to improve the culture within its organisation.
It's sort of changing the culture and the attitude that starts here with us and down through the clubs. Education to clubs and players on referees, their role, how players can communicate better with the referees.
Tim Warren, Now You See News.
Nathan, is the domination of one team good for sport?
Yeah, I think it is. People want to see dominant teams win, but I think it's also good from a point of view, the underdog side as well, and people also want to see the underdogs win and beat these dominant teams.
Yeah, we've seen guys like Michael Phelps and Usain Bolt over the years where we just expect them to win, don't we, Tom?
Yeah, and I mean, if we're looking at dynasties, the All Blacks have to be the best. I mean, with a 77% win rate, I mean, you talk about knowing they're going to win. That's, you come up against the All Blacks this weekend, you've got that little bit of doubt in your mind, and no other team looks to compare. I've got the Wallabies are at 50%, Melbourne Storm from the NRL 67%. Probably the best, surprisingly, in the NBA is San Antonio Spurs. They're at 62. It doesn't really compare to the All Blacks. I found one that comes close. The 1906 Cubs in the baseball. I mean, that was a long time ago, but the All Blacks are just, they have
Crazy.
dynasty written all over them.
But then when we start talking about dynasties, we talk about the greatest of all time. So, Nathan, Floyd Mayweather, he's undefeated,
Yeah.
but Muhammad Ali is still regarded as the greatest.
Yeah. Well, Floyd Mayweather, as you said, undefeated, 50-0, 26 consecutive wins. But I don't think you can compare them at all. Different weight classes, but still Floyd Mayweather is pure dominance.
And and you talk about Mayweather, but I'd have to say Muhammad Ali put boxing on the map. That fight against George Foreman, the Rumble in the Jungle, they call it, back in the 70s, it brought in 1 billion viewers worldwide.
Wow.
So that's, television, watching in and that kind of thing. So, it's hard to think that, anything can be better than Muhammad Ali.
And that's all we have time for on the program. Thank you, Tom Ross and Nathan James, for your insights. For all the latest news, go to our website, nowuc.com.au. I'm Rob Davison, and we'll catch you next time in the locker room.